Zach Azzanni is his name. Disciplining wide receivers is his game. And do not be assigning any blame to him if there happens to be a kerfuffle along the way. And no way was I going to pull off 4 straight rhymes. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. And this is a non-rhyming episode of Daily Shot of Steelers. Comes your way bright and early every weekday morning. If you're into other sports, such as hockey and baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. You didn't really think I was going to be able to keep it going like a 7-minute poem or something, did you? I'm not nearly that nimble with words. A handful of days ago in Latrobe, I was standing near the Steelers sideline as some 7-on-7 drills were happening out on the field, and Azzanni noticed that 2 of his younger wide receivers were on the field as opposed to being behind the white chalk that defines the sideline. For this drill in July that, obviously didn't mean a thing. He sprinted over to them, James Franklin style, for those of you who are familiar with some of the more animated antics that Penn State's coach has, and pointed to their shoes and made sure that their shoes went backwards 6 inches to be on the correct side of that sideline. That made me start to pay attention to Azzanni a little more than I would to any old positional coach. And sure enough, he was in everybody's faces, and that included the face of his very best wide receiver, George Pickens. Coincidence or not, about 10 minutes later, the next time Azzanni got into Pickens' face, and it was right on the field, right after he didn't like something about Pickens' execution on a blocking scheme, Pickens shoved him backward, to which Azzanni responded by setting himself and shoving right back. Now, say what you want about a player shoving his positional coach. Say what you want about that player and that coach later in the same session getting into a heated exchange. I didn't see the latter. I saw the former. It was right in front of me. And our beat writer, Chris Halleck, and about probably 20 other people in the vicinity. And my thought in the moment, and I'm just one person, is not that it's some sort of scandalous thing related to Pickens, but it's this dude is serious. And finally, Mike Tomlin is serious about his receivers being more disciplined in general. Now, if you heard this show around this time a year ago, you'll recall an exclusive report that I put forth that described how the Steelers management was generally dissatisfied with Frisman Jackson, the wide receivers coach at the time, in large part because he couldn't control his room. That was the way that I phrased it back then, you'll remember. And that in turn, this was a big part of the reason Allen Robinson, the veteran wide receiver, speaking of Penn State, was signed to be in that room and to function as kind of the babysitter because Tomlin didn't trust Jackson to do it. Well, season comes and goes. Jackson is predictably fired, arguably could have been fired before the season since they knew all this then. And the choice of the new positional coach would be Azzanni, who spent 2023 with the Jets, who's been in the NFL for almost a decade in that role, who goes back a quarter century as a wide receivers coach between the pros and college, but who everywhere he's been has come with the branding that he is Mr. Detail, Mr. Fire, and yeah, Mr. In Your Face. Roman Wilson was talking about it yesterday. Wilson's a rookie, and you would expect that any coach, whether it's his positional coach, coordinator, head coach, are going to be rougher on a rookie. Wilson made it really clear that even in that context, that Azzanni was different. Azzanni really pushed him, he said, really challenged him in the summer workouts. And as a result, Wilson said he felt like he showed up to Latrobe much better prepared to take on the challenges that he really has to take on like right away, if you think about it, if he's going to establish himself quickly as a contributor to this offense. It's one thing for them to draft him and say, Puka this and Puka that, but, Puka got onto the field right away for the Rams. That was the real key to his becoming a success as quickly as he did in LA. You might not agree with me on this, but my view is this is needed. And in order to achieve the type of discipline that's needed from a position that just really lacks it all across the league, the whole diva mentality, there will be eggs getting broken. That's okay. And doubly so when it's the most important egg of all. When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George. LGKG is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents people hurt in car accidents or who need help with workers' comp or medical malpractice. When the attorneys at LGKG make you a promise, they keep it. They've been keeping promises in our region for over 80 years. LGKG's been AV rated, the highest rating a law firm can receive, and they've been designated super lawyers. That's actually a thing for over 15 years. It's a rare combination. LGKG has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them by visiting lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. LGKG. Today's J1Q, and it's a good one, comes from Mike, who says, DK, now that training camp and preseason have both been shortened to add another game that counts in the win-loss columns, and with the Steelers having such an emphasis on premium draft picks used to bolster the offensive line, why aren't these rookies in there right away? The intricacies of Arthur Smith's new playbook are going to be new to everyone. And then Mike ends with, oh, well, it's just week one. You're right, Mike. I could use that as the answer here and be done with the program. It's week one. When you have a week one setting and when you want to begin to establish a culture with a new team, and that, by the way, is how Mike Tomlin always sees these things, often to an annoying extreme where he never connects any sort of trends that run from year to year. This is a new journey, as he calls it, a new group of men. Well, among those men, there also are boys. When you're coming out of college and you're making it to this level, you haven't made anything until you've first and foremost assimilated to what's expected of you in terms of your behavior, how you carry yourself. But then there are also elements of, showing the proper respect for those who came before you. And as we've seen, in a negative sense, in recent years, there can be a big-time blowback if you try to skip such steps. For example, you know who I'm going to cite, right? Yeah, Kendrick Green. Tomlin just decided out of nowhere that this third-round pick who hadn't spent much time at center was going to be the next Marquise Pouncey. Go ahead and give him 53, throw him out there. You watch, it'll be just like magic. Well, of course, Green was an unmitigated disaster, especially as a rookie, and he didn't get particularly stronger at that position at any stage of his brief time in Pittsburgh. Whether or not Tomlin just set some overall hard reset for himself or whether he learned from that specific lesson, I can't say. That's not anything he would ever discuss. But I do know that there are two things that are happening right now in Latrobe that aren't accidents. One is that Nate Herbig is the starting center for a reason. It's to set the right tone, to send the right message to Zach Frazier and everybody else. Dan Moore is at his old position, moving Broderick Jones over to the right side, with Troy Fautanu mostly taking second-team reps for a reason. Go on right down the line, Landon Roberts has been a lot of the time ahead of Peyton Wilson. Calvin Austin, a lot of the time, has been ahead of Roman Wilson. But are you noticing that I'm qualifying each of these? Some of the time, part of the time. That's because each of these 4 rookies is also getting first-team reps. I'm not sitting there counting them all, but you're seeing a little bit more of it every day. And as those rookies continue to look good and to show well, and by the way, yesterday was a really solid day for both of the Wilsons, Roman Wilson and Peyton Wilson, they're going to have to earn these spots. Even if it's all staged, they're still going to have to do their own part in that stage act, meaning they have to perform. They can't fall on their faces. So yeah, again, you're right. It's week 1. Week 2 begins in earnest tomorrow with the first day in pads, and that's when you're really going to start seeing the separation of, men and boys. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.